You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. All right, so we have been doing this every day over the past 2 weeks. Taking a look at every position group for LSU heading into the 2020 season. And we wrap it up looking at LSU's specialists. Like so many other spots on the LSU roster, a lot of production is gone. Cade York is the greatest kicker in LSU history. He's the highest drafted place kicker since 2016. He holds the LSU record for most 50-yard field goals. He holds the LSU record for points in the season. He's number 2 in career field goals made and career points. He holds the record with 118 consecutive PATs. Cade York is gone. Avery Atkins, who walked on at LSU and was a very good kickoff specialist, also last year served as your punter. He averaged nearly 43 yards per punt, and 54 of his 64 kickoffs resulted in touchbacks. He too is gone. 3 players returned at least one punt for LSU a year ago. Trey Palmer, he's now at Nebraska. Coy Moore, he's now at Auburn. Deion Smith tried to transfer to Ole Miss, but ended up in JUCO. Nobody on your roster today returned a punt for you a year ago. There were 5 players who returned a kickoff for you a year ago. The aforementioned Trey Palmer. John Trey Kirkland, who is now in the NFL. Corey Kiner, who has transferred to Cincinnati. Kayshon Boutte and Chris Hilton returned 1 kick apiece. And I don't think Kayshon Boutte is going to be returning kicks this year. So you are looking for return specialists as well. And for good measure, your long snapper, Quentin Skinner, he entered the transfer portal as well. Now, you went into the transfer portal and added Slade Roy, a long snapper from East Carolina, who very likely steps right into that role. But there are battles and competitions everywhere at LSU. Brian Kelly in the spring talked about the kicking competition. I promise, Brian Kelly talked about the kicking competition.
You know, we've got a freshman on the way, too, who's very talented that will be in the mix as well. I don't want to discount him, but our kickers have done a really good job. I know Brian's excited about him, and he wants to get him into Tiger Stadium and wants to see them kick. So we're going to kick off. They won't have anybody running down, but they're going to kick off. We're going to convert all extra points in field goal situations because we want to let them get into Tiger Stadium and kick because they've really done a nice job throughout the spring. So we're going to let everybody see them and see how they handle it, under those circumstances.
Brian, of course, is Brian Polian, who not only is LSU's recruiting coordinator, but he is the special teams coach. And if there was one spot on the coaching staff, and we did this after Ed Ogeron was fired and the staff was turned over and Brian Kelly hired his new staff, and we went position by position and said, where are the spots where LSU was better a year ago on staff? Corey Raymond was one over Kerry Cooks. The other was Greg McMahon. Greg McMahon, I would argue, was Ed Ogeron's best hire as an assistant coach. He was phenomenal. Every LSU special teams unit and specialist got better over their time in Baton Rouge. He had an amazing eye who brought Cole Tracy here. He recruited Cade York. Greg McMahon was a sensational special teams coach. That's not even debatable. Brian Polian has huge shoes to fill. And what a year to have to do it when you are replacing everybody. So, the place kicking battle. Nathan Diebert is the freshman signee who will show up on campus this fall. They've also got Trey Finnison. Trey Finnison is a grad transfer from Northwestern. He was their starter who handled kickoff duties in 2019, lost the job in 2020 and 2021, now is transferred to LSU as a graduate. They also have Ezekiel Mata, who is a sophomore walk-on from California. Those are your only 3 options at place kicker. As far as punter, you got 2. Peyton Todd returns. He's got a gigantic leg. He redshirted last year when he came from West Monroe. But the problem that they've talked about is his ability to control his punt. To just boom it, he's got that. The problem has been controlling it, angling it, positioning it. He's got to work on that. In the meantime, Jay Bramblet comes in. He was not here for the spring. Jay Bramblet was Brian Kelly's 3-year starter at punter at Notre Dame. Over his career, he averaged 41.6 yards per punt. Last year, he averaged 43 yards a punt. Jay Bramblet is very likely going to be your punter this year. That's why they brought him in. Here was Brian Polian on the battles at both punter and place kicker.
The competition is not whole until we get to the summertime when we add Jay Bramblet, when we add Nathan Diebert, and we're going to add a young man by the name of Trey Finnison, who will join us as a preferred walk-on as a grad transfer from Northwestern. So I'm pleased thus far. I think Damian Ramos and Zeke Mata have done a good job. We've really, only in the last couple of practices, got together as a complete field goal unit. So we were in the installation phase, but they're doing a good job. I'm encouraged. We've been splitting reps. There's no starter. It's just evaluation right now and trying to put them into as many competitive situations as possible.
So, as Brian Polian said, not complete until the summer. They are now complete as they begin those competition battles. Expect to see Jay Bramblet as your punter. I would expect to see Trey Finnison kick off, and they'll let the other kickers battle it out to see who is going to be your field goal kicker. Another big question is who returns punts and kicks. I've said this for as long as I've been on radio. At LSU, you will never have trouble finding a guy who can catch the ball, run really fast, and make somebody miss. I hate the idea of your star players returning kicks and punts. I never liked seeing Derek Stingley and his 2 pristine ACLs go back returning punts. The last thing in the world you ever need is some special teamer from Arkansas with his hair on fire, trying to be a hero, blowing up your superstar player. I don't need Kayshon Boutte returning kicks or punts. You got enough really talented guys back there. Let someone else get their reps that way. It was a great role for Trey Palmer last year. And we've seen other guys in that role in the past. They'll find it. One of the things overall, though, that I loved that Brian Polian said is about LSU's best players playing on special teams.
Our approach is you will see our best players out there. You'll see them on our coverage units because we believe that you have to cover kicks to win games. You got to cover punts, and you got to protect the punter. I mean, think back to the Green Bay Packers. They get a punt blocked and they're out of the playoffs. I mean, you've got to be able to protect kickers. You got to be able to cover kicks to win games. And then we will, as it relates to personnel, there are spots where we will use our best players. And then there are roles for guys that will be 4-unit core special teams players that might be a backup on offense or defense, but will carve out a way to play winning football for us. And we view those players as starters. And really that's what we're doing right now is we're evaluating the roster, trying to figure out who those guys are going to be.
For an LSU team that figures to have a very narrow margin this year with so many questions. And as we've talked, some of these questions are going to get answered to the affirmative. Some are not going to go great. That's just the nature of a football season. But when you figure to have a very narrow margin, special teams could be the difference in how a season goes. I can't help but think of 2018 and the role that Cole Tracy played. Without Cole Tracy, you don't beat Auburn on the road in 2018. Without Cole Tracy, you might not beat Mississippi State at home in the rain when he just kept making field goals. You think back to that bowl game in the Fiesta Bowl, as close as the margin got, Cole Tracy just kept kicking field goals and putting points on the board. Special teams matters when you have a small margin, a narrow margin. I think it's going to matter this year in a big way. They're going to have guys who haven't done it before step up in 2022. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.